The Awakening. For 12,000 years, the Krell Imperium stood unchallenged among the stars. Their sleek, biomechanical ships were feared across 20,000 systems. Their technology was unmatched, their armies numberless, their hunger for conquest insatiable. Species fell before them like grain before a scythe. Some enslaved, others exterminated, a fortunate few permitted to exist as vassals. The Krell themselves were impressive specimens, tall, chitinous beings with multiple limbs and compound eyes that glowed with bioluminescent intelligence. They believed themselves the pinnacle of evolution, destined to rule all life in the galaxy. And for millennia, nothing had proven them wrong. Until something began destroying their outposts along the Perseus Arm. On the command deck of the Undine Glory, Executor Xalthus studied the reports with growing concern. 3 monitoring stations gone silent in as many cycles. 2 military outposts destroyed. A mining colony vanished without a trace. High Command dismisses these incidents as equipment failures or pirate activity, said his second, Varix. They suggest we increase patrols but take no further action. Xalthus's mandibles clicked in irritation. His carapace, scared from centuries of battle, gleamed under the ship's lights. Unlike most of his kind, he had seen real combat, had fought in the last great war against the Arcturus coalition. He knew the difference between random misfortune and coordinated attacks. "Show me the pattern again," he ordered. The holographic display illuminated, revealing the location of each disappearance. They formed a clear line, advancing methodically through Krell space. "Whatever this is, it's heading toward the Nexus worlds," Xalthus observed. "And High Command would have us wait until it reaches our core systems." "Perhaps they fear causing panic," Varix suggested. "Perhaps they've grown complacent," Xalthus countered. "Assemble a battle group. We will intercept this threat before it advances further. Without authorization. Fats. That's how empires survive, Varix, by acting when others hesitate." Within hours, Xalthus had gathered 15 warships, a formidable force by any standard. They set course for Station Dominus, the next likely target based on the intruder's trajectory. As they traveled through hyperspace, Xalthus reviewed historical records. Something about these attacks felt familiar, though he couldn't place why. He accessed the Imperial archives, searching for similar patterns from past conflicts. What he found disturbed him. 800 years ago, a strikingly similar series of outpost destructions had occurred, though on a smaller scale. The perpetrators had eventually been identified. A species called humans from a backwater planet called Earth. The Krell had encountered humans only briefly. They were physically unimpressive, soft-bodied, bipedal mammals with limited natural defenses. Their technology had been primitive, their military capabilities laughable compared to the Krell Imperium. When they resisted Krell expansion, they were swiftly defeated, or so the official history claimed. Yet Xalthus found disturbing inconsistencies in the records. The human homeworld had supposedly been sterilized, their species reduced to a few scattered refugees. But the final battle reports were sealed, accessible only to the Imperial hierarchy. More curious still, several Krell fleets had vanished during that conflict, their destruction attributed to spatial anomalies. And afterward, the Imperium had established a permanent quarantine around the Sol system and several adjacent sectors. Why such precautions for a defeated enemy? Before Xalthus could investigate further, alert signals flashed across the command deck. "We're approaching Station Dominus," Varix announced. "No response to our communications. Sensors. Detecting debris. Significant debris. The station is already gone." Xalthus felt his blood run cold. How recent? Energy signatures suggest destruction occurred less than 1 rotation ago. Any sign of the attacker? Nothing on conventional scanners, but there's a gravitational anomaly 3 light minutes from our position. Xalthus stared at the readings. The anomaly was no natural phenomenon. It was a distortion consistent with advanced stealth technology, bending light and sensor waves around a massive object. "Battle formations," he ordered. "All ships, weapons hot." The Krell vessels spread into an attack grid, their organic hulls pulsing with energy as weapon systems came online. They advanced toward the anomaly, sensors straining to penetrate the distortion field. And then, without warning, the anomaly vanished. In its place appeared a ship unlike any Xalthus had ever seen. Where Krell vessels were curved and organic, this was angular and metallic. Where Krell technology pulsed with bioluminescence, this vessel seemed to swallow light, its hull a deep matte black that defied analysis. It was enormous, at least twice the size of Xalthus's command ship, and bristled with weapon emplacements. "Imperial identification protocols detect no known configuration," Verix reported, his voice tight with tension. "But archives suggest a 78% match with human design principles." "Impossible," Xalthus hissed. "The humans were primitive. They had nothing like this." On the main screen, glowing script appeared across the alien vessel's hull. Xalthus recognized the human alphabet, though he couldn't read it. "Translation," he demanded. Verix worked his console. "It says, THSV Nemesis." The name meant nothing to Xalthus, but he felt a primal dread nonetheless. "Open communications. Demand they identify themselves and surrender immediately." The message was sent. For long moments, there was no response. Then, a voice came through, speaking perfect Krell, yet unmistakably not Krell in its cadence and tone. "This is Captain Helena Vega of the Terran warship Nemesis. We do not recognize Krell authority. You are trespassing in space that does not belong to you. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Terran, the formal name for humans. Xalthus's mandibles clicked rapidly in shock. "They are insane," Verix whispered. "One ship against 15. Xalthus wasn't so certain. "Scan that vessel more thoroughly. I want to know what we're facing." Before the scans could complete, the human ship moved. One moment it was stationary. The next, it had closed half the distance to the Krell formation, moving with impossible speed. "Weapons locked," Verix shouted. "There." The rest of his warning was lost as reality itself seemed to tear open. A beam of energy, not plasma, not laser, something else entirely, lanced from the human vessel. It struck the nearest Krell warship, and the vessel simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris. One moment it was there. The next, its space was empty. "Evasive maneuvers," Xalthus roared. "All ships, open fire." The Krell fleet responded, unleashing their formidable arsenals. Energy torpedoes, graviton beams, and plasma lances converged on the human ship, only to be absorbed by some kind of shield technology that glowed faintly blue on impact. The Nemesis fired again. Another Krell ship vanished. Then another. On his command deck, Xalthus watched in horror as his battle group was systematically dismantled. The human vessel moved with impossible agility for its size, evading concentrated fire while picking off Krell ships one by one. "This cannot be happening," Verix whispered, his compound eyes wide with shock. "They were primitives. We defeated them." Xalthus had no answer. His tactical display showed 8 ships already lost, with no damage registered to the human vessel. The voice of Captain Vega came through the communication system again. "This is your final warning, Executor Xalthus. Withdraw your remaining forces or be destroyed." They knew his name. Somehow, they knew exactly who commanded this battle group. "We must retreat," Verix urged. "We cannot stand against this." Pride and duty warred within Xalthus. Retreat was disgrace in Krell culture, but annihilation would help no one. "All remaining vessels, emergency hyperspace jump," he ordered. "Scatter pattern, rendezvous at coordinates Delta 9. As the hyperspace engines powered up, Xalthus watched the human ship on his view screen. It made no move to pursue, despite clearly having the ability to do so. A message allowed to escape. But why? The undine glory leaked into hyperspace, leaving the graveyard of Krell ships behind. But Xalthis knew with cold certainty that this was only the beginning. The humans had returned, and they had not come in peace. In the safety of hyperspace, Xalthis accessed the most restricted Imperial archives, using authorization codes he wasn't supposed to possess. If the Imperium had hidden the truth about humans, he would find it. The files were heavily encrypted, but eventually yielded their secrets. What Xalthis discovered shook him to his core. 800 years ago, the Krell had indeed attacked Earth and its colonies. But the swift victory, recorded in official histories, was a lie. The humans had fought back with unexpected ferocity and ingenuity. They had destroyed multiple Krell fleets before finally being overwhelmed by superior numbers. Yet even in defeat, they had refused to submit. As Krell forces closed in on Earth, the humans had done something unprecedented. They had evacuated their entire species. Billions of humans had vanished in generation ships, fleeing into uncharted space beyond the galaxy's edge. The last human transmission, recorded in the archives, chilled Xalthis' blood. "Remember us, Krell. We will return. And when we do, there will be a reckoning." The Imperium had hidden this truth, fearing that knowledge of such defiance might inspire other subjugated species. The quarantine around Sol wasn't to contain survivors. It was to hide the evidence of a hollow victory. And now, after 8 centuries, the humans had kept their promise. They had returned. But what had they been doing all that time? How had a technologically inferior species developed weapons that could make Krell warships simply cease to exist? On the bridge of the Undine Glory, Xalthis made his decision. He would not report to High Command. Not yet. First, he needed to understand exactly what the Imperium was facing. And for that, he needed to know more about the Nemesis and its capabilities. He turned to his navigation officer. "Change course. We're not retreating to Delta 9. Sir, we're going to follow that human ship. At a safe distance, I want to know where it came from and where it's going." As the Undine Glory altered its trajectory, Xalthis wondered if he was making the greatest mistake of his long life. But the alternative, allowing the Imperium to blindly face this threat, would be far worse. The humans had returned from exile, and they had brought vengeance with them. The reckoning. Aboard the Terran warship Nemesis, Captain Helena Vega watched the Krell vessels retreat into hyperspace. Her dark eyes reflected the tactical display, where the remains of the Krell battle group drifted silently through the void. 7 ships destroyed, 8 fled, including the command vessel of Executor Xalthis. "They'll be back," said Commander Eli Donovan, her executive officer, "and in greater numbers." Helena nodded. That was always the plan. The bridge of the Nemesis was unlike the command centers of old Earth vessels. No chairs, no individual stations, just a circular platform where the command crew stood within a holographic interface that surrounded them completely. Data flowed around them like water, responding to gestures and thoughts through neural interfaces implanted at the base of each officer's skull. "Executor Xalthis has altered course," reported Lieutenant Quan, head of tactical. "He's not rejoining the Krell fleet. He's following us, at extreme range." "Good," Helena said. "Let him." "Captain." Donovan looked puzzled. "We want witnesses, Eli. We want them to see what's coming." Helena stepped to the center of the command platform. The holographic interface shifted, displaying the vast expanse of space that once contained the Sol system, humanity's cradle, lost centuries ago. 800 years since the Krell forces had descended on Earth. 800 years since Operation Exodus had launched the last of humanity into the great unknown, beyond the galaxy's edge. 800 years of preparation, of evolution, of transformation. The Nemesis was just the beginning. "Set course for the Nexus," Helena ordered. "It's time for the next phase." As the massive ship accelerated to speeds that defied conventional physics, Helena thought about Xalthis. Unlike most Krell, he'd shown adaptability, choosing retreat over annihilation, curiosity over blind aggression. He might yet prove useful. The Nemesis entered hyperspace, its revolutionary drive leaving no trace for Krell sensors to follow. But Helena knew Xalthus would find a way to track them. The Krell were nothing if not persistent. 3 days later, the Nemesis dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Krell Nexus, a cluster of 7 star systems that formed the heart of the Imperium. Here, the Krell maintained their greatest population centers, their most vital shipyards, and the central hub of their government. Alert status, Helena ordered calmly. But hold position. Let's wait for our shadow to arrive. Sure enough, 12 hours later, sensors detected a Krell vessel emerging from hyperspace, the Undine Glory, maintaining a cautious distance. He's scanning us, Quan reported. Let him look, Helena replied, and make sure our guest has a good view of what happens next. She opened a communications channel that only the Undine Glory would receive. Executor Xalthus, I know you've been following us. I know you've accessed the restricted files about Earth. You now understand that your Imperium lied to its people. What you don't yet understand is why we've returned. She paused, letting her words sink in. Watch carefully. This is only a fraction of what humanity has become. Helena nodded to Quan, who activated a specific sequence on his interface. The space around the Nemesis began to shimmer, as if reality itself was becoming unraveled. And then, one by one, they appeared. First 10, then 50, then hundreds, vessels of the same black, angular design as the Nemesis, emerging from what appeared to be nowhere. In truth, they had been there all along, cloaked by technology the Krell couldn't begin to comprehend. 512 ships, Donovan announced. All reporting ready, Captain. Helena could imagine Xalthus's shock as his sensors registered the armada that had materialized before him. 500 warships, each the equal of the Nemesis, each capable of erasing Krell vessels from existence. Begin the operation, Helena ordered. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination, breaking into smaller battle groups and accelerating toward different targets within the Nexus. They weren't heading for population centers or civilian installations, however. Their targets were military, shipyards, weapons platforms, fleet installations. This wasn't an extermination. It was a surgical dismantling of the Krell's ability to make war. On her private channel to the Undine Glory, Helena continued, We could have returned with enough firepower to sterilize every Krell world, just as you attempted to do to Earth. But that is not our way. We are not conquerors or exterminators. We are the balance that you have long lacked. The human fleet engaged Krell defenses throughout the Nexus. It was hardly a battle, more a systematic neutralization. Krell weapons were ineffective against human shields. Krell ships were too slow to evade human targeting systems. The technological gap was insurmountable. Your people have ruled through fear and superior force for 12,000 years, Helena continued. You've crushed species that could have been allies. You've destroyed civilizations that might have enriched the galaxy, all because you believe might makes right, that your technological advantage gave you the authority to decide who lives and who dies. On her tactical display, Helena watched as the last Krell military installation went dark. Not destroyed, merely disabled. The human weapons were precise enough to target power systems and weapons while leaving structures intact. In 3 hours, representatives from every species in the galaxy will receive the same transmission, she told Xalthus. They will learn that the Krell Imperium's military power has been neutralized. They will learn that the humans have returned from exile. And they will learn that the era of single-species domination is over. Helena paused, watching as her fleet regrouped, their mission accomplished with minimal Krell casualties. You're wondering why I'm telling you this, she continued. Why I let you follow us. Why I didn't simply destroy your vessel. It's because the galaxy doesn't need another tyrant, Xalthus. It doesn't need humans replacing Krell as the dominant power. What it needs is balance. The Undine Glory remained in position, making no move to attack or retreat, likely because Xalthus understood the futility of either action. When we fled Earth, we didn't just travel through space, Solthis. We traveled through time. The relativistic effects of our journey meant that while 800 years passed for the galaxy, only 200 passed for us. We used that time to evolve, to advance our technology beyond anything you could imagine. We could have returned sooner, but we waited until we were certain we could end the cycle of domination permanently. Helena gestured, and a new set of data appeared in her interface, images from across the galaxy, where other human fleets were simultaneously neutralizing Krell military power. Your civilian infrastructure remains intact. Your people will not suffer, but the Krell Imperium as a military force ceases to exist today. In its place, we are establishing the Galactic Covenant, an alliance of all species, including yours, if you choose to join. No single species will dominate. No single world will rule. The strong will protect the weak until they are strong no more. Helena's voice softened slightly. I'm offering you a choice, Executor. Join us in building something better than empire. Help your people transition to a new role in a balanced galaxy. Or fight, and be remembered as the last defender of a tyranny that deserved to fall. For long moments, there was no response from the Undine Glory. Then, a transmission came through, audio only, in Solthis's distinctive voice. You speak of balance, he said, yet you come with overwhelming force. You claim to be different from us, yet you dictate terms as conquerors. How is your covenant different from our Imperium, except in name? A fair question. Helena had expected no less from him. The difference is choice, she replied. The Covenant has no military arm except for defense against external threats. No member species can be compelled to participate in action against another. All technological advancements must be shared equally among members, and leadership rotates among all species on a regular cycle. She paused. Most importantly, any species can leave the Covenant at any time, without repercussion, so long as they do not threaten others. Can your Imperium say the same? Again, silence from the Krell vessel. Then, what happens now? Now, I invite you aboard the Nemesis, Helena said. As a diplomatic envoy, not a prisoner. See what we are offering. Meet representatives of other species who have already joined the Covenant. Then make your decision. It was a risk, bringing a Krell executor aboard. But Helena had always believed that understanding required proximity, that true peace could only be built on personal connections. And if I refuse, then you're free to return to your people and tell them what you've witnessed. The choice is yours, Solthis. But know this, the age of empires is over. The age of Covenant has begun. For what seemed an eternity, the Undine Glory remained motionless. Then, a small shuttle detached from its hull, heading toward the Nemesis. Helena smiled. Sometimes, even after centuries of war and mistrust, a single step could change everything. The shuttle docked in the Nemesis's main hangar bay. Helena, accompanied by Commander Donovan and 2 unarmed security officers, waited as the airlock cycled. The doors slid open, and Executor Xalthis ducked through the opening. He was tall, even for a Krell, nearly 3 meters, with the characteristic chitinous exoskeleton and multiple limbs of his species. His compound eyes swept the hangar bay, taking in details that would have been invisible to human eyes. Welcome aboard the Nemesis, Executor, Helena said. Thank you for coming. Xalthis's mandibles clicked softly, the Krell equivalent of a skeptical snort. I am here to understand my enemy. Nothing more. Not enemy, Helena corrected. Potential ally. She led him through the ship, explaining its technologies, introducing him to crew members from a dozen different species, some familiar to the Krell, others from beyond the galactic rim, encountered by humans during their exile. Xalthis remained silent, observing everything with unreadable compound eyes. Finally, they'd reached the heart of the ship, the quantum core that powered the Nemesis's reality-altering weapons. This technology, Helena explained, could have been used to destroy entire star systems, Instead, we calibrated it for precision, for minimal loss of life. Why? Zalthus asked. After what we did to Earth, why show restraint? Helena smiled sadly. Because 800 years is long enough to learn that vengeance is an endless cycle. Because we discovered something more important than retribution. And what is that? Purpose, Helena replied. There are threats beyond the galaxy's edge. Zalthus, things that make the conflicts between our kind seem petty. We encountered them during our exile. We barely survived. Alone, no species will endure what's coming. Together, we might have a chance. For the first time, Zalthus's composure faltered. What threats? What did you find out there? Helena gestured, and a holographic display activated, showing images that had haunted humanity for centuries. Vast, incomprehensible entities that existed beyond conventional space and time. Entities that saw the galaxy and all its inhabitants as nothing more than resources to be harvested. We call them the Void Heralds, she said quietly. They're drawn to advanced civilizations. They consume them. They've destroyed entire galaxies, and they've detected ours. Zalthus stared at the images, his alienness momentarily forgotten in shared horror. How long? 50 years, perhaps less. That's why we couldn't wait any longer. That's why the Covenant must form now. Every species, every technology, every mind working together. It's our only hope. Understanding dawned in Zalthus's compound eyes. You didn't return to exact revenge on Akrell. No, we returned to save you and everyone else. Zalthus was silent for a long time, his alien mind processing implications that would shatter 12,000 years of Krell supremacy. Finally, he spoke. If what you show me is true, then the Krell must adapt. We have never been vassals or equals. This will not be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is, Helena said. But I believe your people can change, just as mine did. And if the Imperium refuses to join your covenant, Helena's expression hardened slightly. Then they will face the Void Heralds alone. We've disabled your military capabilities, but we won't force you to join us. That choice must be yours. Zalthus straightened to his full height, his exoskeleton clicking as he moved. I will return to the Imperium. I will show them what I have seen. I make no promises beyond that. That's all I ask, Helena replied. The human fleet will withdraw from Krell space in 24 hours. We hope to hear from you before the Covenant's first council convenes in 3 months. As Zalthus turned to leave, he paused. Captain Vega, one question remains. You said humans waited until you were certain you could end the cycle of domination. How can you be certain? Helena smiled, but there was something ancient and sad in her eyes. Because we learned the hardest lesson of all. Zalthus, true power isn't about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself when you have every reason not to. Zalthus's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Perhaps there is wisdom in that. We shall see. After the Krell executor had departed, Donovan joined Helena on the observation deck. Together, they watched as the Undine Glory disappeared into hyperspace, carrying Zalthus and humanity's message back to the heart of the former Imperium. Do you think they'll join us? Donovan asked. Helena gazed out at the stars, stars that had once seemed so distant from Earth, now simply points in a larger constellation of life. I don't know, she admitted, but today we gave them something they've never had before. What's that? Helena smiled. A choice. Across the galaxy, the human fleets completed their missions and began to withdraw. The message went out to 1,000 worlds, 10,000 species. The Krell Imperium's military domination was over. A new era was beginning, and this time, all would have a voice. They had ruled the stars unchallenged for 12,000 years, until a human battleship, and the hope it carried, shattered their reign forever.